Hello, I'm Robert Martinez, State Historian of New Mexico, and I am bringing you New Mexico history in 10 minutes. Where was I? Oh, yeah, I was talking about ancient civilizations. So, let me restate. From the ancient Greeks, we got philosophy, amazing teachings from Socrates. We don't have his writings anymore, but his student Plato, he gave us a lot of the thought that Socrates had going on in ancient Athens, and of course, Aristotle. Homer was a great writer of ancient Greece who gave us epic poems, but the first epic poem actually comes from Mesopotamia, the Epic of Gilgamesh. So all of these ideas of writing and government and religion, these are the building blocks and foundation of civilizations down the centuries, down to ours to this day. I want to make a point. We historians are having to rethink what we mean when we say writing. The Phoenicians were a group that were around at the same time as the ancient Greeks, and they're in what's now Lebanon, the Eastern Mediterranean, and we get the first alphabet from them. The Greeks borrow it, and it's used by peoples all over Eastern Europe and then Western Europe. But Egypt didn't have an alphabet. They used glyphs, images, and symbols. The Chinese, the ancient Chinese, had symbols that were packed with meaning and depth. And the Native Americans also used glyphs and symbols. So we're really having to readjust what we mean by writing, that's writing as well. It's not just about alphabet or what we see in places like Greece and Rome. So now we need to look at ancient Greece. Ancient Greece was in operation around 500 to 1,000 years BC, and then the Greek empire starts to wane. They don't go away. They just start to weaken. And what happens on the Italian peninsula, people are populating that part of the world, Celts, ancient prehistoric peoples, and then you get a group there called the Latins. They are not a Latin music group or anything. They are actually people who establish themselves along rivers, especially what we call the Tiber River. They establish small communities made out of wood, wood towns. Well, then the Etruscans come in. These are people from Anatolia, what we now call Turkey. They come in and they establish cities there. They build stone cities, and this is the birth of Rome. First, the city of Rome, and then they start to overtake all the other communities and peoples of the Italian peninsula and establish the early Roman Empire right there on the Italian peninsula. It's not really an empire yet, though, because they're just living right in that area. In the meantime, those Phoenicians, they're trading indigo and other things all over the Mediterranean world and establishing themselves. So they've established a community in North Africa that grows to become the Carthaginian Empire. They colonized Spain, and eventually, around 200 years BC, they run into the Romans in what is now Sicily. They fight over territory, and after battles that last for 100 years, remember Hannibal, the guy with the elephants? He was from Spain. Well, he's part of all this. Eventually, the Carthaginians are defeated by the Romans, and the Romans inherit and take everything the Carthaginians had, including Spain, okay? So this is the Roman Empire. It lasts about 600 years, and it goes through many different periods. It has a republic, a dictatorship and tyranny, decadence and decay, and then a fall. Empires are like that. They're easy to establish. They're not easy to keep. But 600 years is a good run. Spain is part of all this. Spain has been colonized by Celts. The Iberians were the first people there. Again, the Phoenicians were there. And the Greeks went there. The Greeks went there and they brought two very important crops to Spain. They brought the grape and the olive. The grape for wine, olive for food, and for olive oil. Which I have a joke for you all. If we get grape juice and wine by pressing grapes, and then we get olive oil by pressing olives, Where do we get baby oil? Think about it. Anyway, this is the beginning of Spain, okay? A Mediterranean land colonized by people from all over the world. So this is the ancient world in the Mediterranean. And what happens in Spain is Roman soldiers, Roman Empire completely Latinized Spain. It's Romanized, okay? That, for lack of a better word, the Latin language is brought to Spain. Roman soldiers colonize and live in Spain and blend with the local people. Architecture, government, and concrete. It's one of the great inventions by the Romans. So the next time you're walking on concrete, you should say, "Thank you, Romans," because that's where we get concrete. It's quite amazing, though. Spain is on the edge of the known world for the Mediterranean. It's Finisterre, Land's End. That's where the world was supposed to end. So it's kind of a backwater. It's on the edge of the world, and yet you still have these civilizations coming to Spain and influencing Spain and putting Spain, whether she liked it or not, at the center of history. Kind of like New Mexico in a way. That's how I've always seen our history here. So I want you to think about that, because what happens next is Rome lasts from about 200 BC till about 400 AD. AD meaning Anno Domini, the year of our Lord. Not after death. It means Anno Domini. The modern way of saying it is CE, the Common Era. But I'm a bit of a traditionalist, so I just say AD. What happens is when the Roman Empire is starting to weaken, Germanic barbarians from places that we now call France and Germany, they spill over the mountains, the Alps of northern Italy and the Pyrenees mountains. They spill over into what we now call Italy and Spain. And this happens around 410, and this is the end of the Roman Empire, at least officially. Okay? Why were these people doing this? Because demographics made them. You had Mongols in what's now China pushing against Huns, who then moved west and pushed against barbarians, Germanic peoples, who then pushed against Rome. The Roman Empire was vast. It was in England and what's now France, parts of Germany, of course, Spain and Portugal, North Africa. So this is the end of the Roman Empire, at least in the West. It lasts a little longer in the East. But this is a period in Spain where you have different tribes coming in, Suevi, Ostrogoths, but the biggie are the Visigoths. They come in and they are the dominating group. They're actually a minority. They're a ruling minority who take over, and while they are the ruling class of the Iberian Peninsula, that's Spain and Portugal, they're actually conquered by Roman culture and Roman civilization. They take on the Latin language, Latin, Roman legal codes. They're kind of brutal. At first, they won't blend with the local people, feeling themselves superior. They were not very nice to the local Jewish population who had arrived recently from the Eastern Mediterranean. So it was a tough era for Spain, but it also is a time that the Visigoths bring the monarchy to Spain, and they bring Catholicism. Granted, they bring a heretical form of Catholicism called Arianism, founded by a priest named Arius. This was a movement started in the 300s, whereas this priest challenged the divinity of Christ. It's a heretical movement. It's interesting to know that most heresies in the Catholic Church were started by priests, smart men. And so this is the form of Christianity that comes to Spain. But within a generation or so, they convert to Orthodoxy and join mainline ancient Catholicism. So, I'm going to stop right there because we're getting to Spain. We're going to start talking about what happens in the 400s all the way to the 1400s, the 1,000 years that shape, develop, and create what we know as the modern nation of Spain. So thanks for joining me. Take care. Hasta pronto.